Everyone. In our last video we saw how we can actually change the different colors of layers, and in this video I'll just go over this again, but I want to focus particularly on the two layers who didn't actually change too much, namely rivers and roads. So this chapter pertains to the continuation of changing the layer colors, but also changing the thickness and the pattern that you have within land use layers and building layers. So again, just a quick review. If you want to change any layer, we have just to double click on the layer and we'll go into layer properties. The first thing, the first screen actually that shows up is the style one, and that's where we change our different color properties. You have the pre-default colors, but it's always more advisable to create your own color patterns. So in our last video we had changed our simple fill for land use and buildings, and for buildings we have recent colors, and I think it was a grayish hue that we used. We can just change it here, or we could go to fill and choose one of the standard colors and press OK. Then we can change also the water layer, so double click on the water layer and go to fill and change here to the recent color. Okay, so we changed that color as well. Now there are several ways of changing colors again, and some are more complex and more informative in terms of the structure of what you can do than others. So if I would zoom into my buildings, I could go, for example, to buildings, again, my layer property, and say that I didn't want a simple fill as pattern, but I wanted to have a more sophisticated fill pattern where I had, for example, different fill style. So if I click on simple fill, I can choose the fill style that I want to have, and I have very different types of fill styles that I can use. So for example, instead of using a solid color, which makes it all gray, I could go and choose, say, dense 3. And if I click apply, I would have sort of this dotted dense pattern. If I want to make black and white maps, obviously, to distinguish the different layers within black and white, working with fill styles is quite useful. And I could still change the different colors of the fill pattern that I'm using. So for example, I can make it red, click on apply, and that would change it to a red fill of that specific building. For now I'm going to use dark gray, and I can also choose the border width that I want to have and the b-val that I want to use. So for example, here. But if I want to use, for example, the border width, I want to have a thicker border, I can go and change my border width, and you will see, I'll just make it a bit bigger here, and you will see that the outline of the buildings becomes more defined. So full style, border, and join style, which we're not going to be using too much here in terms of joining the polygons, but and border width can be changed to your interest. So obviously you got to think what you want to visualize, because if I want to look at the entire area, as the border width is so thick right now, I cannot even see the colors I have. So for example, for closer maps, I will prefer to have a border width which isn't that thick. So for example, 0.2, 0.02, and that makes it perhaps a little bit clearer. So it's a question of the aesthetics really and the scale of what you're looking at. Okay, so I'm going to zoom into my buildings layer again, although I'm going to make a closer map so I can really see this area over here. And watercolor has been changed, but notice that, for example, the lines of the rivers and roads are not really very interesting. They are very similar. The color shade is hardly visible, and certainly I cannot distinguish really what in terms of symbology makes up the rivers and what makes up the roads. So What I would be interested to do any change, I could just double click on the river layer, and in the river layer again I can choose the color I want to use. I'm just going to use the same color I have for my lakes, which makes sense. It looks more like water. But one of the things that probably is more important to change is the pen width. In this case, you see that if I click on a polyline or a line segment, the options are a bit different. So in this case, I've got a pen width, which is going to define the thickness of the layer I have for my rivers. So I'm just going to go and type 1, and immediately you can see that the river is much more distinguished than the road layer that I have. Click on apply, great, and let's do the same thing. I'm actually going to focus on the segment of the river here and the roads. And I'm going to change the road layer as well, so just double click on the road layer. Again, there are several ways of having access to the layer properties. I could go and double click it as I've just done, or I could just go right click it and hit properties. And that is basically the options I have. I can also go to layer and properties over here. Okay, so there are 3 options I can actually have access to the layer properties, which allow you to do a ton of different things. But for now, we're just exploring the different symbols. So, and we're using single symbols only. So if we type on the line types, besides the simple line, which I can actually depend with and change different types, I can choose, for example, to no pan dash line. I would change my roads to a dash line. Let's keep it at 1 as well, and click on apply. I would have this dashed lines for my road segments. But I have also, right in the beginning here in the line, I've got predefined choices. And usually the predefined ones are catering really for symbology that looks like specific things that we're used to. So for example, we have different motorways, we've got locked roads, we've got road segments and riverbanks and rivers. In that case, we've chosen a different color type for our rivers. But we can change it using the predefined groups that we have. So I'm going to choose roads for mine and just click on OK. And now it suddenly looks a little more like roads. And I'm going to do the same thing with rivers and use the predefined line segment for rivers, which is right over here. Great. Oh, yep. So I've got my lines, my roads, and again, I think the buildings would take advantage if I would just do it with a simple fill, and instead of dense I'm just going to use the solid and make it to a lighter gray color with border style solid, and I'm going to put a little bit of border width, so 1, so it really gets that division here. Great! So that's how you actually style a layer symbology. Now an interesting thing that we can also do is, once we have that, is basically to add a base map to our project. And the base maps are quite interesting to add because they really allow us to have more visuals on what we're looking at. Now notice that adding a base map takes sometimes time, but it is certainly an advantage to look at exactly the areas and the surroundings, and it helps us to make pretty interesting maps. So to do this, you actually have to install a different plugin, and I know we haven't actually looked at how you install plugins, so that would be a good place to start. To install a plugin, just go to Plugins, and in Plugins choose Manage and Install Plugins. And once you're there, you're going to choose Open Layer. And just search by typing, so type Open Layer, and it allows you to click on that plugin. Now I already have mine installed. I'm just going to install it, uninstall it for you guys to see how it looks like if I install it from scratch. So again, I go to Plugins, Manage and Install Plugins, Open Layers plugin, and I click on it, I have immediately a review on how good it is, and I actually love this plugin, so I'm just going to rate it here as 5. And I just click on Install Plugin. Cool. So once the plugin is installed, I can close my plugin installation window, and I'll have a new tool here, which is basically located under Web, Open Layer Plugins, and I can add a base map. So I prefer to use OpenStreetMaps as base maps, so I'm just going to choose, for example, the traditional OpenStreetMap. It takes some time to load, so give it some time. So we're looking at a area which is there, slow to load. The internet is sometimes a bit slow, but anyways, we've loaded it up, and if we go and zoom now to the extent of our buildings, we should have, after some time of processing the OpenStreetMap, the base map of the entire area. That's pretty cool. So I can just zoom into that area again. Again, the base maps do take some time to load because they're pretty big repositories. And there you go, you have a better overview of the areas. And now I think that it's too much gray with our buildings in light gray, so I'm just going to change that color to a darker color. There you go, like this. And yeah, cool. So I've got my rivers, my roads, and I've got my base map for that area. I can use different base maps as well. So imagine if you want to use something that has, say, it shows more vegetation, stuff like that. So you can go to your web again, Open Layers plugin, and choose, say, let's go for a more colorful Google base. We can use, for example, the satellite view from Google. And that makes us an overlay where we have the entire buildings and the real vegetation that we have around that. That looks pretty cool. I'm just going to change here my watercolor to water. And I'm going to change my buildings because I can hardly see my buildings now with that color. So I'm just going to change them actually to white. See how that works, and great. So I've got a pretty nifty map here, which shows my rivers, my buildings, and as well all the surrounding vegetations. Well, good. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.